I am so happy to see you all here. One of the things that sets Galvanize apart is the deep and ongoing research that we do to understand how moderate women are making sense of things in a very fast-paced, rapidly changing social, cultural, and political landscape of 2025. Throughout the year, their top issues stayed pretty consistent. The economy is always the number one issue. Secondarily, we saw preserving democracy is the number two spot of most selected responses when they say, what's the most important issue facing this country? So moderate women are putting preserving democracy as their number two. Healthcare, immigration, and crime move around slightly, but those are in the next set of things that are top of mind for our audience. So I want you to take away from this slide that what you've been hearing in the this fall in the elections is correct. Affordability, economy is always number one. And for moderate women, they do care about that economic security. They do care about democratic norms and institutions. And we're going to talk more about what that means to them. And then they're very concerned with the health and safety of their family. So let's dig a little bit deeper and we'll go through each of those three buckets to understand how it shows up and what does it mean. So I'm going to start with the economy, their number one issue. When moderate women are identifying that as their top issue, they're talking about the economic security for themselves and their family. They're talking about price of groceries, price of rent, abilities to make ends meet, and inflation. That helps us to address their real life concerns and help them to sort through who is to blame and who will have their backs, right? Okay, so now let's look at the next issue, democratic norms and institutions. Over the course of our research, what we've seen is it's important not to address democracy as an abstract ideal, but really how it impacts their lives and focus on what they hold dear. We also see the concern for democratic norms and institution coming up as it ties to their core values of patriotism, freedom, and fairness, as well as when they relate to or touch on their desire for stability and safety for their family. Okay, I'm going to move on now to health and safety. So, on health, healthcare is an issue that is very important to our audience, and it's fascinating to me because it's a place where they see themselves as having more progressive beliefs than others in their network. And as I said, we know that this disinformation, this propaganda that's being sent out to connect immigrants to crime is designed to instill fear and build support for these tactics, or at least get people to look away and not act. When we asked moderate women about some of the disinformation narratives in an immigration survey this year, what we saw was 30% report believing to some degree that immigrants commit more crimes than US citizens. So we're seeing some of that propaganda work with about a third saying, I believe that immigrants commit more crimes than US citizens. That's designed to make people turn down the heat and not be so worried when they see immigrants being deported, right? The good news here, a majority of women, moderate women that we interviewed, 71%, while they said that stronger border security was needed, mass deportation was not the solution for them. And what you're seeing here are the three that more than 50% of moderate white women identified as their red lines. So the first is allows the military to use deadly force against peaceful protesters, uses the justice system to jail political opponents without proof that they did anything wrong, and refuses to abide by lawful court orders and take unconstitutional action. We have seen a version of each of those things happen this year. So if this was moderate women's red lines, what have they done about it? Have they been taking action? How are they taking it in? In a recent survey, we looked at different audience segments, and the centrists in that survey, one of the core groups of ideologically moderate women who we focus on, 62% said they oppose Trump's actions, but only 6% have taken action. 22% would like to take action but haven't done so. And the plurality, 34%, you can see that's the lightest shade of teal, said they oppose Trump's policies but wouldn't take action to oppose them, right? So what you have is a lot of folks saying they oppose the actions, but not a lot of moderate women taking action. And we looked at Why is that? So, in our last webinar, we went and did an in-depth qualitative research study, and we shared that with you about what holds moderate women back from taking civic action in general. And in that, if you'll remember, a lot of that was on fear of conflict. And we also did a deep dive into how do we get them to care and galvanize them to action. In What I want to draw your attention to is if we hear these are the red lines, and then we see 62% saying they oppose what he's doing, but so few taking action, what can we learn about why they haven't, and what does that mean for us? So, as a follow up, we asked all the respondents who said they wouldn't take action, why not? At least half of all respondents said this is the reason why not. So, 72% said, I am worried about my safety. So, a fear of personal safety that connects to fear of conflict and to actual physical harm. 73% said, I don't think those civic actions will create change. So that's an agency question. 50% said, I am worried I will face consequences at work or in my personal life. And if you've been with us from the beginning, this is a constant thing. If this is what I do believe, but if I express this, I will have, there will be consequences, both social and economic. If people know this is how I feel, I will be penalized for it by my husband, my social group, and maybe even my employer, right? So we see half of them saying that here. And then just over half saying, I don't know how to participate in those actions. Interesting, right? So this is one of the reasons our engagement strategies with this audience are so important. We know that they generally care and are supportive of what we want them to see, standing up for democratic actions, peaceful protests. And we know what they're upset about, these red lines, but we also see that they need real support to stand up for their beliefs in the face of fear of conflict and negative consequences, right? And this next one, what we see is how we're taking all of this data and how that helps us to understand what we need to do to move moderate women and have the impact we need. In this presentation, you've really heard two key themes, that there's two key types of programming that is needed. There's one, the women who aren't quite sure what they think about where we are in this moment. Those women need persuasion programming to help them sort through the noise, counter the mis and disinformation designed to trigger their fears, and help them clearly see who is to blame and who has their back. So that's kind of category one. Category two is for the women who are clear and who tell us, I oppose this, what's happening, and I actually would support this kind of protest or this action, but so few of them will take the action. What can we do to support them to take even small actions in line with their values and their hopes for the future to help overcome their barriers to taking action and to chip away at the stuff that holds them back and to make sure that we're supporting them to have the confidence and the community that will support them so that they can ultimately vote in line with those values and protect our democracy. So for folks who aren't clear yet, our persuasion programming will meet them there at those values, shape perspective and positions. And then the folks who are clear, we're helping build up their confidence, support them to take action, even if those actions are small at first, to build up that civic behavior over time. All of our research and validated by what we saw in the elections this fall points to the narratives we need to be talking with our audience about. The economy. This is the majority of the content we'll be focused on because we're centering our audience, what they care most about, and that's going to be economic security, health, and safety. That is the number one thing. We put our audience at the center and we talk to her about what she's worried about. Then we're going to be contrasting that with their current reality, who is helping them and who is not helping them. So let's look at how we are delivering these narratives. Our programming will include always-on content in folks' social media feeds. This is a shift for the Galvanize Action. We will be showing up where our audience already spends their time, delivering content they crave, that they will return to and support them to act. This combination of popular and persuasive content delivers a mix of what we call like sugar and substance. And it leads with culture. The next thing we're doing is amplifying our messaging through creator cohorts. We'll be partnering with influencers who authentically speak to our target audience to infuse their content with our effective messaging on civic issues. The third piece is paid ads. We will absolutely continue to do paid ads with trusted messengers. Finally, a new thing this next year will be more rapid response to meet cultural and political moments. We need to build our community of support, and we want to be a community with you next year. And we want to be together and providing the hope and understanding and inspiration so that we can go forward together and protect this democracy.